Welcome to the Schulich Executive Education Center. Today, I'm joined by three amazing faculty, Mark, Alessandro, and Terence. We're launching a program in February 11th. It's called Thriving in a Digital Future. There's something naturally happening in this world. And there are certainly megatrends, there are disruptions, and many leaders are faced with the challenge of trying to manage their teams of people. Some are even asking whether they'll even have a team of people. It might be a team of AI bots. So we really have to start thinking about, and what does the future look like? And what does the future of leadership look like? And we could not be prouder and happier to have three faculty here today, giving us insight into that future. And so without further delay, I'd like to introduce Mark, Alessandro, and Terence for a panel discussion around thriving in a digital future.
Carlo, thank you very much. I'll take the responsibility of kicking this off. So first of all, thrilled that you gave us the opportunity to work together. Now, besides the jokes in the practice session, Alessandro, Terence, and I, we've been working together for many years, and foremost than anything, we're friends, which makes it easier for us to work together. We've been working already indirectly together in so many different ways, and you gave us an opportunity to truly blend and fuse two important works that we personally think have been advancing the conversation on how business should eventually think about the big change, the big transformation, the big pictures. And so clearly we started designing the program by thinking about the work that Terence and I brought together a few years back on understanding trends. And Alessandro then wrote an interesting work on how the driver for execution of these trends in concert with the 4T solution can really take the organization to the next level. So we like to imagine that if Terence and I did more of a macro, Alessandro was able to take it into more of a meso micro level. And that's why we think it's complementary frameworks. So this is like what really inspired the design of this program. And maybe each one of us can give you a bit of a sense of how we see this. From my perspective, this is a union of ideas that have created almost like an organizing principle of understanding contextual frameworks. And we are currently writing about this. So not only this program will be the first one, but we've been sharing this into a number of different publications that will eventually integrate in our own course as we're running the program starting February 11th. Maybe I'll go to Terence and then Alessandro. So Terence, your take on that.
Right. Thank you very much, Mark. Nice to meet you all. Very, very excited to be here. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to us. And I don't know how the questions work, but if you've got any questions, feel free to actually pop it into the Q&A box. We will try to answer as many questions as we possibly can, whether it's related to content or the program itself. Feel free to ask questions, because we don't pretend that we know everything. For one, and second, we need to. Every one of us needs to have the habit of continuously learning. And I think this is particularly the case when after the COVID, everything is can go in every single direction. A lot of the forecasts that were made before the pandemic or during the pandemic, what the new normal could be like, it's off, right? Or some of the more immediate consequence impact we have not yet seen. Now maybe we are going to see further into the future, maybe not. But what I'm trying to say is that it is a very, very, it's difficult, it's tricky to try to figure out where we are going. And I guess, this is where the leadership, leadership and, the innovative thinkings would really actually come in. And this is, I think, one of the reasons why the program is set up this way. We look at the trends, we look at the context, the contextual issues, the information, the immediate surroundings, and gradually narrow down to the technologies bit. And that leads me to my second point. Technology moving very, very quickly. Technologies themselves are advancing at a pace that sometimes beyond belief. Having said that, I guess one of the myths is that businesses and in fact a lot of the business executives whom I personally have met, so probably anecdotal, probably a bit of a personal observation, is that the adoption is still very, very slow. And I think there are a lot of reasons for that. We don't have to actually go into details, but I think organizational, money, right, people's willingness and acceptance are very are standing in the way. So we are looking at in almost something that is very fast moving, but at the same time, the take-up rate is low. So I guess, this is, and another aim we were trying to achieve with this program, right, is to not just think about, where the technologies are going or the contextual, the flow, where the general undercurrent is going. What we'll also look at is, how technologies can more realistically be embedded into businesses. What are the issues, factors, considerations one might need to take in order to make technology works, and therefore businesses can be powered by the technologies and take it to the next level and charge ahead with greater confidence. I'm going to stop here, and now I'll let Alessandro actually talk about it, share his view. Alessandro.
Thank you, Terence. Thank you, Mark, Carlo, and everyone. Very nice meeting you. I'm very happy to follow up on what Terence was saying, because he said something that's critical to me and to us. We need to stay humble. We need to keep learning. One of the things I keep hearing, and I'm not happy at all. I'm not happy because I hear it both as a question and as an answer when I ask, that COVID has changed many things, has increased the turbulence in the ecosystem we work in. And what I don't like is when I ask successful managers, what are you doing differently? And when people ask me, what are we doing, they're doing differently, most of the answers we hear is, well, we looked at what was working just before, and we are now trying to push it, but we struggle. So what Terence said very clearly is that we have ways where to look. We know where to look for inspiration, but we were not great before. And COVID just put more pressure, but we're still struggling. So when we put this course together, and the way I look at this course, it does for us a couple of things. One, I mean, I'm a professor of strategy, so eventually I was going to use this language. Let me just get it out of the way right away. Two of the key questions you need to answer in strategy are, where are we going to compete, and how are we going to compete? And so the DRIVE framework that Terence and Mark compiled, put together and researched, provide a new set of answers to the first question. You need to understand megatrends to know where you want to compete. And my framework, the Clever framework, gives you new rules and new principles on how you're going to compete. Now, with the two of these, we bring together, and they give you a toolkit and a way of thinking and a mindset for this new era. But at the same time, once again, staying humble. The future doesn't exist, so we cannot know it. And it can't be predicted because it's so turbulent. So what do you do when you don't know, right? You need to start embracing uncertainty just as a characteristic, just as a feature of the context you work in, and develop new techniques, new tools, and new mindsets to face it. Just embrace it and seize the opportunities it provides. So I'm going to stop here for the time being, but this is a bit the language that I will bring to that we will bring to the course, to the program, and the expectations that we bring to the program.
Alessandro, I'll take you from here, and I guess what we can do is to add more in this conversation, and I guess what the three of us are truly looking forward to are the questions that are coming from our audience. So one of the reflection that we've been having a lot in our work is whether technology is just the means to an end, or whether technology is equally transforming the way organizations compete in the marketplace, but also there's an identity question. Technology is rapidly changing the way companies are. When technology is introducing a given task, that not only changes the efficiency of the task, it might enhance the job. Sometimes the enhancement happens by the displacement of the job, and we've seen a lot of this conversation these days. When you are enhancing that job, you're displacing the job, you kind of change the way the organization thinks. And every company these days is experiencing increasing integration of digital components in their own raison d'etre. There's more and more technology today than what we expect. somehow we are all technology led. Some companies know about it, other companies do not know about this. So how do we integrate technology in a more strategic way is also where the course will take into account, respectively, in our own field of work. Terence, Alessandro, and I, we always talk about technology, but we're not technologists by design. We merely became technologists in the way that we express informed opinion on how technology is transforming the language of strategy. And this is an important part of the conversation, because bringing technology at the right level of analysis will allow you to start thinking that, do we have a technology-led strategy? And how does it work? We will be able to ask questions such as, is digital transformation about technology, or is it more about culture? And so we'll try to be able to blend more of this conversation. We'll talk about resilience. There's another big important conversation we're going to have. And to this effect, we'll be trying to operate lately in this space, this nexus, where we think about increasing shocks are going to impact our life because of the integrated system, therefore systemic risk increasing. And can we redesign organization to be much more future fit and future ready? Which is one of the questions that I guess will also be part of what thriving a digital future is all about. I've been talking a little bit about this, launching it back to Terence to build from where I am and expand it more, then to Alessandro, and then Carlo, if that's okay with you, maybe we'll look forward to our first question coming so that we can have a dialogue, right? Terence, thoughts, reaction, reflection?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. I mean, I fully agree with you. Like, like the culture is very, very important. You just remind me of a surreal experience last week, when I was doing a workshop for a company in Serbia. And it's a big company. So I started talking about technologies, how to actually embed technologies into the company. What do you need to actually do, right? And one of the things that two things that came out of it. One was, as I always said, and this is part of what I will be sharing with all the in the program, is that ultimately, like you were saying, Mark, the fact that technologies must actually be accompanied with with the right culture, people, workflows and processes in order for it to create value, business value. Just technology itself is it's a necessary but in insufficient condition to actually get to the point where it can generate business benefits. So the question is this: how? But that's not the surprise I was having. The surprise actually came from the fact that one of the participants came up to me, and then I confirmed it with the HR, is this: what happened if the company's culture is not supporting innovation, is not providing the most basic stuff, like putting money on the table and say, listen, here is some amount of money that I set aside. If you come up with a great idea, here is the money that you can go and test it out, doing a POC, a proof of concept, prototyping. This is what what companies need to offer in order to do that. Whereas the company that I was speaking to, right, basically not even the executive, the top management team, they are actually interested in innovation. So if we talk about innovation at the bottom, right, it's really frustrating and disappointing. But hey, that is, I guess that's one of the reasons why culture is really a part of it. And I guess this is what we're trying to actually bring to any of our participants in to the program, and that is thinking beyond the immediate activities, thinking beyond the immediate technologies. The fact is this: if you were like value chain, like supply chain, right? Value is actually created by adding different layers of new stuff, right? Of new activities. Some of it will be technology driven. Some of it will be humans, will be humans led. Question here is, what are the things that should be done by humans, and what are the things that should be done by technologies? And thinking through it, right, requires, I think, a little bit more than a strategic framework. Requires more about understanding how technologies work, how the outside external environment work. So and hence what Alessandro was saying, the framework that we came across, and how the business work. It's like you're saying, it's a nexus, but it's a very tricky balance, because you're not just balancing two acts. You're basically balancing a number of a number of weights in order to actually stay afloat. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. And I think what we can do with the program is to drill deeper into the issues, and hopefully share some insights as to what can be done, what cannot be done, what are the possibilities, and just as important, what are the limitations that we will likely walk into. So, Alessandro, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you, Terence. Look, I noticed there's a question. I saw a question in the chat at some point. We're going to get to that, Bart. If you don't mind, I just wanted to quickly quip on what Terence just said. I also have an anecdote. It's an anecdote that I experienced as a customer, not as a provider, as a customer of a bank. And I'm not going to tell you what the bank is, but it's a bank in Dubai. And Dubai is a fairly advanced country. The economy is advanced. The government is very forward-looking, and they really understand the importance of digital transformation and support it with policy. But when I went to this bank, I had to sit in front of the person who was there to help me open my bank account. And I had submitted my online application. It was like a lot of work, right? I submitted all my digital documents. And then I saw him with the full printout of all my application. And I asked him, why do you have my application on paper? He said, because I need to scan it now. Now he had to scan it to make it digital again. So the problem there is not that the technology is not there. Is that we use the technology to replicate the same techniques, procedure, processes, and mental processes as we did before. And in so doing, in practice, we're actually becoming worse than we were before. It would have been just much easier if I just brought my paper copy to begin with. So these technologies give us an opportunity. They need to be embraced in the right, by the right culture. They need to be led in the right way, and they need the right operations, right? The right practical step-by-step procedures. One of the big messages that I think we will pass through this program and these guidance on how to do this. Two things really, but they are connected. These technologies are capable of giving us and our organizations superpowers of some sort. Not because they can do everything. We keep hearing AI is going to do this, AI can't do everything. AI can do very, very few things, but those things it can do really well. And if you understand how to do those things really well in a way that makes sense for you and for your organization, that will give you superpowers. And I think that this is one of the big takeaways and one of the big, benefits of the program and why we put it together. Sorry, I think I kept Bart waiting for far too long. That was not very respectful. But professors love to talk. I think you will have to figure that out sooner or later. So better sooner.
Yeah, Bart's comment is a key challenge is being able to provide leadership and promote beneficial change within a system in a large organization where you actually don't control most of the levers, which is maybe a very fair comment.
Carlo, we can all express a thought on this. It's such an interesting question, Bart. Thanks for kicking this off. Maybe my first 2 cents on that part. I think fundamentally, organizations are designed for some form of command and control, which is historically inferred by the way factories used to work, because we had to produce physical products. Today, organizations were structured that way. They are only partially effective in understanding the market, because markets, they evolve in a much more fluid way. They constantly transform. I hardly think markets, they stand still. They are in constant entropy. So I would say one of the challenges, which is an opportunity we'll definitely discuss in our course, is how do you design organization for processes that are not necessarily fixed variables, but they are in constant evolution. And that has a lot to do with culture. We're not necessarily organizational theorists, but as we come in from strategy and finance, we understanding that the best strategy of organization can have is building cultures. And I think the same goes for innovation or digital mindset. It's called mindset for a reason. So I guess challenge will be shifting at the cultural tenets so that we can see this as a way of redefining value in organization. So Terence, I think you have also something to do about control command and the relationship with how, markets really operate.
Yeah. So, thanks, Mark. I mean, you know what, when you say command control, that was exactly the term that came into my head when I was facing this Serbian company, because it's exactly what it is, command and control. Now, question here is, how do you actually, push for innovation in a setting like this, right? And the answer here is that it's very difficult, because if there's no sponsors, in very many ways you just can't. But if you are actually one of the story, one of the more the lessons I learned from this is that if you are actually running an organization, there are two things that one needs to do. One is to get a different mindset, do something different, right? Allow for enable, empower your team to actually do something different. The second thing I want to say is, like Alexandra was saying, AI can do very, very few things. We tend to over, mythologize or over fantasize what technologies can do, but in reality, they can do very, very few things. Now, the problem is that, with using new technologies, it is a quantum leap in terms of risk, in terms of potential financial impact, losses, and so one thing that I've seen very many companies doing, and we started in very many ways, we started to actually help our clients with putting AI into their businesses, is that what is the right thing to do? What the right thing to do is to actually look for gradual improvement, right? I'm not saying that gradual improvement is it's the most optimal outcome, but it is definitely the one of the best spots, best steps one can take as the first step moving forward with using technologies, because one, the risk is lower, and two, you can it's much easier for you to calculate the return on investment, which in turns give you a lot more momentum, which in turns give you a lot more confidence, give you a lot more credentials in order to actually keep pushing this project forward, and then hopefully introduce another project. So it's a very, very delicate thing, but I don't think it is impossible. There are different ways to do it. So that's basically that's my answer. I don't know whether Alexandro, you have you have more to add. Happy to actually move on to the next questions. I think Alkim, put forward.
Yeah, so I completely agree. My answer was going to be very much in line with what Terence said. So start small. Choose something that has a low level of complexity in terms of the number of data points, the stakeholders. Yeah. If you need other people to collect data for you so that you can make a project, that's probably not the right place to start, because they have all very, very good reasons not to do it for you. I'm trying to generalize something that, it's very organizational specific, but try with something as simple as possible, as Terence was saying, and clearly linked to one strategic objective. After that, everyone else will want to do the same thing that you're doing. So you lead by example, even without being a CEO. Sorry, I tried to keep it short. I hope that was still clear.
That's great. That's great. We do have a question. How is drive and motivation melded into the process?
So drive and motivation, meaning the individual desire to bring about change and to lead change.
To lead change, yeah.
Listen, my part of the answer, at least one part of the answer that operates truly at the individual level, I think that in my view, two things I would like to say. One is what I call very briefly a future mindset, or a change in mindset that becomes important. For me, the thinking of a future mindset means effectively that because you can't know what the future look like, and the future, the more you look into the future, in the distant future, the more possible contingencies, become possible. So the future can be very different from today. And because it's not predetermined, this liberates you. Yeah, it says you don't need to forecast it because you can't know it, but you can shape it. it's very empowering to think about the future this way as an open-ended set of scenarios. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing. Yeah, one thing that tells you this is up to you. There's a few more things that we do in the program. We think about the potential of digital technologies. And one of the questions that we'll be asking is, how will you change the world when something becomes widely available that is very expensive today? And I don't want to give away too much about this, but so there are 2 or 3 big pushes, yeah, that we give you to motivate you in this direction.
That's helpful. We have another comment is, all the technology is great, but without the human touch and the support from the top, so from a leadership's perspective. I will say this though, often leaders will want to put in a new application, call it a CRM of some sort. And anyone who's ever used CRM knows all too well that it's often underutilized or poorly utilized. So sometimes the top is, let's get a new technology, let's implement it. We go through the pain of a year of putting it in, and then we see very, very little impact, if not mostly negative impact on the human element. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that human touch, as well as that leadership decision to push down some technology.
Carlo, maybe I can try to address Vesey's question. What was mentioned before about digital transformation is not about technology, is exactly this, right? We have to redefine organizational processes altogether because of what both Alessandro and Terence said before. Technology that definitely has an impact, but the real impact is it transforms some expectation on the productivity of the job. So redesigning jobs and the productivity of a company in light of a technology solution that maybe starts as a top-down is a critical factor of success. Sometimes back, we were writing on HBR about even if you have artificial intelligence and you prototype it in the organization, sometimes you push it back or it fails because you don't have the right people in the organization to actually make it work. So I would say the answer to the point, Vesey, is that building digital mindset is as required as back in the day when we wanted to have people with engineering background, people that had maybe HR background. So we have to think about it transversally as understanding that digital is actually a new language that needs to be integrated because it creates, as you mentioned, Vesey, a non-linear form of transformation that doesn't simply happen because, it's not in a straight line. That is a challenge organizations have in general in understanding non-linearity. And I guess the language will have to be adapted through technology, through their conversation, to the engagement. And we always say this in our classes, technology is an extension of the brain. So the way we actually define our mindset clearly defines the way we'll deal with the technology itself.
Great, thank you. We have another question. What are the key 4th industrial technologies that will drive digital transformation in the manufacturing industry?
Shall I give it a shot, right?
Yeah.
So that's a great question. I am glad to actually see someone from the, at least mentioning manufacturing industry. We seem to think, a lot of us now, we are moving more away from product into more service. Everything is getting more intangible. Anything that is tangible is old news, old stuff, not uninteresting. Not true. Absolutely not true. I think first, there's no way in the future we will be lopsided towards having something that is intangible. Granted, maybe we will be spending more of our time in metaverse than this verse, a real verse of ours. But that is a long way to go. That's one. Two, I think a lot of people will still be very, very against joining the metaverse. I cannot even imagine for a moment that I have to teach in the metaverse, right? That would be really that would be a really, really, really rubbish idea. And then the key thing here is this, Mark and I and another friend and long-term partners of ours is actually currently working on a book. And we had the absolute opportunity of interviewing the CEO of Siemens in France and Belgium. And during the interviews, we were asking them and said, how's the business doing? For Siemens. And then he said, we have never done so good business before, in history. I said, how is it possible when everything is locked down and everything, right? How would even be possible that factories will actually be doing well, manufacturing is doing well, right? How is it possible, when everyone's talking, the only thing everyone is talking about is e-commerce and buying online, everything. No, he said, you need to actually understand a number of things. One is that, we need stuff, products. There is always a need for products, right? To start with, we need masks at the very least. Okay, we need products to actually keep us going. Second, here is he said is this, he said in the so-called post-digital world, what really, if you think about it, what really give a manufacturing and productions give to people is not just industrial strength or economic benefits. It also gives people dignity. It also gives people pride. It's much easier, at least from the European perspective, right? I guess, because Europe is very, very good at advanced manufacturing. It gives people pride. It gives people something that they are truly seen as valuable when there is something in their hands. So I think manufacturing is not going to go away. What I think would happen is that the way manufacturing industry is going to change, to do things is very, very, very different. There will be a lot more technologies involved. Granted, we have been talking about robotics for the longest time, but I think what we will start to see is not on the robotic side. There will be, granted, there will be continuous improvement in robotics, but I think there will be a lot more advancement made, in when it comes to usage of data for the purpose of production, for optimization. And the reason is simple, because the cost, the investment going into that type of optimization, going into intangible processes, would actually be much lower than and therefore, again, going back to the concept of return investment, that will be I think that in the short term, right, as we are recovering from COVID, and therefore companies are trying to recuperate, I think that's where the focus would be. So the use of data, optimizations, I think that will be the key. I think another thing I need to mention is this: what a lot of factories would do is probably start to outsource different processes like optimization to other companies, and therefore I think there are lots of opportunities for businesses to offer X as a service, software as a service, that type of product, right, if you like, to companies, to help them to manage data offsite, to manage processes offsite. I think we're going to see more and more things happening in that area.
Great. We have some. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Carlo. I just noticed that there's actually now 2 questions in the Q&A box. I wanted to take one, if that's all right. Eli Kiplim was correctly raising the point that, having a future mindset is sounds all good, but it means that you have to start thinking in a completely different way, and many people resist that. Very fair point. So the question is, what exactly can you do? And listen, I'm just going to keep this a bit short. I also wanted to ask you, Carlo, how are we doing with time, just to make sure that we respect everybody's commitments.
Sure. We have approximately 13 more minutes.
Okay, great. So some of the things that you are in a position to do, right, is to be supportive and be a good supporter, a good leader for the team that you have. So when people are afraid of change, there usually are many reasons, but most of them depend on the way they are treated at work, the opportunities they are given. We sometimes say, as managers, I'm always open, my door is always open, people can come to me whenever they want. And by saying that, we feel like we are open to people. A colleague of ours very interestingly said that when you say that your door is always open, you're actually creating a barrier between you and the others. Why? Well, first of all, you're saying, well, first of all, I have a door. Next, it's my choice if the door is open or closed. And third, if you want to talk to me, you have to come into my territory. Now, it's very reassuring and self-comforting saying that your door is always open, but are you really conveying the right message? And do you feel like you should convey that other message, right? So being in a culture where speaking up, just to use this language, is possible and easy and encouraged is essential. Because most of the people who work with you and for you have great ideas. And they have perspectives that you couldn't imagine. They can bring a lot of value to you personally, and of course to your team and to your business unit and your organization. And in a way, you have access to this wealth of ideas and perspectives. And I'm not saying, when I say you, it's not individual to anyone, but it's a habit, it's a style of management. We tend to treat them as if they were pieces in a puzzle that we need to control, instead of empowering them as individuals with capabilities and drive and desire. Now, we saw this over and over and over again after COVID. During lockdown, there were companies that spent more time checking on their employees rather than letting them do their job. There's no trust, right? There's no belief that these people are capable. Shockingly, because most are. And so some of the things that you can actually do, practical things that you can actually do, really have to do with being a good manager, meaning you create a safe psychological environment for them to share, to take risks, to help each other, give each other feedback. You also want to have a level of transparency. When people know that your word is worth something, they will be willing to take more risks when you offer support or you give them guidance or you give them inspiration. There's a few more things, of course. I mean, I'm just trying to keep the answer within a reasonable duration, but being a good manager and a good leader that supports people more than processes and more than rules and hierarchy, that's the first step, if I can summarize that.
Can I
Carlo,
just
maybe
yeah.
Sorry, Terence, go ahead.
Can I just add one more point? Is this? I'll keep it short. Yeah, I know I've been talking too much, but like Alexandra was saying, we are professors. You can't actually keep us shut up. Yeah, that's just impossible. So whoever is paying for this program, you need to actually have the psychological preparation for this. I'm going to keep it short as promised. I think another key challenge managing forward is that, how do you, I think that the management style, the way you manage people is going to be drastically different than before, simply because we're spending a lot more time on Zoom. You can only see the person, so all the communications is specific. All the communications is very, very narrow, using narrow band, like a narrow band, right? Without the diffuse, without the contextual information, how do you actually understand your colleagues, the teams that you are actually working with? How as well, one of our friends at American Express, an American Express executive said to us, is how can you actually at the time of figuring out who is to be promoted, how do you make a decision when you cannot even observe, that very person's all the time, right? I think it's going to be there is a huge number of challenges managers would have to face going forward, managing the teams in a technology-driven setting. Mark.
I wanted to build on both Terence and Alessandro, and actually there's a question from Alec Plim that I like to address as well. Trust is clearly not coming with the technology innovation by itself. Sometimes we think that because we have a technology advancement, trust is actually implicit. It is not. It has to be built. I think, one of the first things to demystify is the trust is a process that doesn't come just because the technology makes a specific transaction more efficient. That's the first part. The second thing, which is interesting, the question was asked, is we sometimes think of technology exclusively for the purpose of economic benefits, because we measure the economy in economic terms in very narrow ways. We are probably past that point. I think COVID gave us a major wake-up call in understanding that value as a concept is wider than just financial or monetary. So how do we build a culture where we can use technology to enhance people? I tend to use a TED talk in my classes from the co-founder of Siri, who basically say, we spend a lot of time in thinking about how making machines smarter. Do we spend equal amount of time in making humans smarter? And I think this is the key. How do we use technology to augment people? To the question that you were asking before, Alec Blaine, right? Enhancing social drivers, allowing people to have an inclusion of any form, from financial to social, using technology for people that have physical disabilities. I think we are facing a larger number of opportunity ever in front of us, from climate modeling all the way down to mental health issues, where we can think about technology widely deployed. Because at the end of the day, if we are not a human-centric society, what are we? So I guess, again, going back to and attaching this to the program that Carlo is supporting us with, when we talk about thriving a digital future, we're not really interested about technology by itself. We're interested in what technology enables us to become. And I think that part of social enhancement is a critical part of what we plan. And I think by now is a conversation that more and more organizations are understanding, because you might displace labor at first because technology is cheaper at first, but eventually you're eroding the cultural fabric of an organization. And so back to people, to what Alessandro said before, is going to become, I think, the new holy grail in many ways, and something that we lost with the first inkling of automation.
You know, one thing that I heard the other day, again, I'll keep it short, is this. I started I think I read something that sent a chill down my spine. It said something like validation, not trust. That scares me a lot all of a sudden, because what it means is that I don't trust you. I need to check. That's that's the that is becoming the mantra of a very human relationship. So it's to me I think how to build up trust in a setting as we are seeing in a fast changing environment. That is one of the key things that we need to spend more time on.
Well, I will, if it's okay, can we end with, there's so many great comments and questions. Can we end with one question in particular here from Christina, is how do you move organizations forward that are stuck in this old world? Command control, heavy paper, bums and seats, manufacturing types.
Look, there's no quick, easy answer, but I wanted to, this is also connected with what Adnan was asking. And so that would be my first point in the four quadrants, building on what Mark and Terence have elaborated a bit more in that. What I see, this is my take, but organizations need to enter digital transformation in this fourth industrial revolution and this new era. They need to appreciate the importance of transforming data into value and everything that goes with it. And so that would be the first message that I would like to pass. And now data into value means many things to different people, but as Terence was suggesting earlier, you can start with small projects and you start progressively showing the value of the alternative rather than punishing people for doing what has worked so well for them for such a long time. I know very talented former students of mine who did MBAs, executive MBAs. They went to work in large companies, big companies, and they spent their entire lives trying to be good at the old framework so that they could get the corner office. Now, you can't just take it away from them and tell them, no, we were kidding. Now you have to do something completely different. That would be also unfair as a message. So you have to show them progressively that the things that they care about, such as being successful, Mark was saying that a moment ago, right? You want to be good at what you do. Well, there's a better way, and we're here to help you. That would be a more constructive approach. With that being said, there's no quick and easy, quick and dirty solution, but that's where I would start.
Carlo, maybe my 30 seconds on this, because the Christina question is a wonderful overarching question that brings us to a conclusion, right? So Christina, I think, and there was another question before from Adnan that I really like about how do you make the first step? I think you start identifying where in the organization transforming digitally really helps, because you start noticing that we have a low-hanging fruit. When you do that, you start building conversation about what technology is currently doing, how is changing the opportunity around the companies. but also using example of failures or companies that were never courageous enough to make that kind of mental shift. Today, I think, Christina, we have so many examples of companies that were so stubborn that they didn't want to innovate during COVID, and they don't exist anymore. So we don't necessarily need the crisis to actually shift organization. We just need to have a little bit less reluctancy on change, and understanding that in a world in constant transformation, it would be nice if growth looks incremental and is extrapolation from the past, but that's kind of a fairy tale, doesn't exist anymore. So focusing on the reality of business today is probably the best motivator to really move people, even those who are more reluctant. And maybe, Terence, you can bring it to a closer.
Right. Thanks. Thanks for this. I guess, I've got nothing more to add. But I do very much agree with you that it's a mindset change. We do need to actually gradually be very prepared to keep moving. Ultimately, right? In a business, I always say there are only two types of people: tech people and business people. We cannot expect the tech people to solve business problems, and therefore, it is up to the business people to actually pick up the technology ideas and then move on and create new business solutions. That's the only way you can actually move forward, right? And at the same time, going back to what Alexandra was saying, right? We tend to carry, we, business school professors, right? Also have that issues is that, we tend to carry a lot of legacy thinking with us. We try to sometimes we even perpetuate the legacy thinking. I think in the new world, right? I'm not saying that they are not valid, but there is definitely a change, a need to revise these ideas, to revisit these ideas and come up with new frameworks. And I'm hoping that this is what we would be able to have as a conversation, with our participants, grounding onto the some of the latest observations, whether it is trends, whether it is what is happening in various industries, Alexandra was mentioning fintech, financial services. It has actually moved ahead very, very quickly. But is it what exactly are they doing? Are they giving up? Are they actually just having new business model or new technologies, or are they basically revolutionizing the entire financial services? What exactly are they doing? How do they do it? So these are the things that we are trying to address.
Fantastic. Juliet's last point here, she agrees with you, Terence, that may suggest a third type of person, which is the person who bridges the tech and business people together. Also a very good point.
And this is exactly what I think every one of us should be. This is the sweet spot, I believe. But so thank you. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the program kicks off in February. Those who participate in the program, we'd like to thank all the attendees who joined today. I'd like to thank our guest lecturers and faculty. Program is February 11th. It's a great opportunity. It's approximately 30 hours. About 18 hours of that will be live. Get an opportunity to work with Alessandro, Terence, and Mark, and you're going to unpack what the future is going to look like. You're going to think about resilience, and you're going to demystify the fourth industrial revolution. Well, without further delay, I'd like to say thank you again, and congratulations on a fantastic panel with insightful questions and great comments.